Well, I think as a young kid it was amazing to walk in the same dressing room as Clive Rice, Graham Pollock, Kevin McKenzie, Ray Jennings, all those guys. I think Alan Curry was just on his way out. I think remember in the first unofficial Test match in Port Elizabeth, sat next to Graham Pollock, and obviously I don't think I said a word for 2 days. Sort of only if I was spoken to. And it was just amazing how these guys were, in awe of them, and going on the same field as that was the last Test match that Graham Pollock played, or unofficial Test match, and just to be on the same park as them was just a really great experience. And you can't really tell it to a lot of people. What was it like? A lot of people would say, well, it was just a very vivid experience of what it was like. For 5 days I treasured because I was in the same field as those guys. It was amazing.
At that time, did you think that you would ever be able to represent South Africa on the world stage again?
Well, there was a lot of talk, a lot of political talk, and those were, as we say, the dark days of South African sport. And went over to England, and I was convinced I was going to, play some sort of representative cricket. I didn't know it was for South Africa at that time, but speaking to Robin Smith and Alan Lamb, I was pretty much convinced that I was going to play for England. And Dr. Bacher convinced me. He said, "Listen, in 2 years' time from now, we're going to be back in international sport." And he was quite right. So I was very pleased that I made the right decision to play for my country.
You made a big impression with your arrival at Warwickshire in 1989, taking 86 wickets in your first season there. What are your early memories about being over there?
Well, first of all, I had to learn to speak English. I was this young little Afrikaans boy leaving for the first time in '87 to go and play for Warwickshire, and obviously it was nice because I enjoyed it. It sort of made me a lot more independent, finding things out for myself, and not only just that, just the travelling around England and playing against the best players in the world, and for here comes this young Afrikaner boy watching Viv Richards play on television, and all these other guys, David Gower, Ian Botham, Graham Gooch. Was just a fantastic experience. That improved my cricket from the day I arrived there.
And I heard that you sent 5 players on one occasion to hospital.
That was against Lancashire, yeah. It was in 1989 where we got things right on the day and broke a few fingers and a very quick wicket. I think hit Wasim Akram on the chin. And that's where all the headlines started. This young South African tear-in bowler is causing havoc in England. But that was the start of things to come. It was a very successful summer, that.
And did you have any role models or people who inspired you in the start?
I think that I never really had any role models. Guys I looked up to, yes. I mean, in the early days it was Clive Rice and those guys. I think the guy that stood out for me was a great friend, Hansie Cronje, who set the tone for everybody else, And he was a fantastic captain, a great leader, on and off the field. And I think that sort of looked up to him and say, well, maybe I want to be like that one day and portray my image to people like he did. Was just so calm and easy about things, how he went about things, and I think you don't need to look further than him.
If you had to define the man, who is Allan Donald?
Well, a very, I would say, quite laid-back individual. I take things in my stride. I think I'm like the man on the street. And another guy that I really looked up to as Ernie Els. I know Ernie quite well, and he is just like one of us on the street. He's easygoing. He portrays himself to other people as just a normal, easygoing guy, and that's how I see myself. I don't think I'm a big head or anything like that. And I think that my sport that I've played, I've wanted to as I think it sort of carried over in that way. Very easy. I'm a very passionate person, unbelievably passionate. Whether it's watching rugby, playing golf, playing cricket, I've always played for the badge. So I'd like for people to remember me in that way.
Is there a moment in your career which stands out above all the rest for you?
I think the They're two really. I always say this. Going to the subcontinent is a tough tour, you know, with Pakistan or India. And under Hansi Cronje, we won both Test matches in India, and obviously taking the winning catch against Pakistan in Faisalabad in Pakistan. To have won there, I think, has achieved a lot, because it really is tough. You can't imagine telling guys how tough it is to tour there and to win there, because it's never been done. And I think South Africa are one of very few sides who have actually succeeded.
And has Test cricket changed much over the last decade?
Yeah, I think the pace of the game has really increased. The run rate that people bat on these days is well above 3.5 and over. The Aussies do it fantastically well. I think they've taken Test cricket to another level. And it's almost like one-day cricket when you play against these guys. When you play Test cricket against them, it's fast. It's whatever they do, they apply the pressure with the bat and the ball, and it's tough to sort of go with these guys, because they, you know, whatever they do at pace. And I think from that point of view, wherever you go these days, India, Pakistan, it's changed for that way.
Now being acknowledged as obviously the best bowler ever produced in South Africa, and one of the best in the world, was it a goal of yours from the start?
Definitely, yes. I wanted to be, as I set myself goals for every game, for every series, I wanted to be remembered as one of South Africa's best. You know, even at school, my ambition was to be, at school I wanted to be the school's best bowler, and the club's best bowler, and as it turned out, you know, things has worked out that way. So there's someone out there who's going to be the very best again, you know, one of the youngsters of South Africa, I hope. And I think South Africa needs heroes or legends like that to set the example for young school kids. You know, whenever I speak to school kids or motivational talks, I always say those kind of things. You know, what lies, if you want to be the best, it's got to come from the heart. And so I think that hopefully there are guys who are going to follow that kind of way of thinking.
And what would you think makes a great bowler?
I think it's you know, if you've got the desire and you've got the talent, you're halfway there. It's how you break through those tough times that makes you a really good bowler, and or a really good sportsman, really. And it really, I believe it lies in there, and if you've got it, you're more than halfway there, and the absolute desire to succeed. But to have all those things, I think the most important thing is to enjoy it, because if you don't enjoy it, you know, life becomes a lot difficult. So any young cricketer who aspires to be there, I mean, if you're tight and you're stiff and you know, you're not going to go a long way. But really to enjoy it, whatever you do. I mean, it's whether it's playing bowls, cricket or rugby, it's the enjoyment factor.
What is it like when South Africa was readmitted as a Test nation?
It was well, it was a day to remember. It was still seeing it live on television. I think the announcement was made at Lord's in the morning, sort of mid-morning, and I think the whole of South Africa was really, you know, wow, you know, all of a sudden we're going to Australia to go and play in the World Cup, and it was just an amazing day. I think for everyone, I felt a lot of relief, and it's all over. Now we can compete with the best, and well, it ended up being in the semi-final of the 1992 World Cup, which was the start of things to come, the start of 4 World Cups for me, you know, which was a fantastic experience.
And as a Test player, are there any specific batsmen with which you had keen rivalries with?
Yeah, Brian Lara, Sachin Tendulkar, the War brothers, Michael Atherton, you know, just to name those guys, they were probably the toughest opponents. The best probably is Sachin Tendulkar. I think is rated as the best batsman in the world. Most exciting was probably Brian Lara, because he's, you know, you fight fire with fire when you play with him or against him. And then I think the 2 toughest men that I've quite happily can say I won't bump into again is probably the Steve Waugh and Michael Atherton. You know, they're very resilient, very tough, mentally tough. When you play against these guys, you know that they're setting their stall out to bat for a long time. They're going to take a few blows, but also they'll make you work for their wickets. definitely.
And obviously there's a lot of sucking out on the field between Latin and bowling.
Yeah, a few words fly around, and I think it's the guy with the toughest probably is mentally tough. It was Steve Waugh, because he just couldn't care who it was. He even said publicly that sometimes he wishes that Australia are 13 for 3, so he can go in and bat all day. And he's done that on many occasions, you know, which that guy's just a very, very tough character, and he's done brilliantly for Australia.
Is there one cricketer you would have loved to have played against, or from any other area, and why?
I played one game against Viv Richards, and it was a game to remember. I wish I could have played him against a little bit more, because what struck me is he's a big man, and he was so in your face, and the confidence of the guy was. And I never showed you that he was down and out, and he always came in with a cap. He never ever batted with a helmet in his life. And well, a lot of bowlers in the world cricket tried to knock that cap off his head and never succeeded. You know, he's just an amazing man. Even now he's the chairman of selectors of West Indies cricket, and even now he walks around and I like the way he struts around, and you know, almost that arrogance, confident arrogance that he's got. And he's one of the greats of the game, you know, so it's a shame I hadn't had the pleasure of sort of maybe playing more against him, learning about what he thinks of the game.
And Allan, how would you like to be remembered?
I think I'd like to remember as someone who gave it 120% every time he went out there, and the way that I operated on the field and off the field, and you know, just gave it all for all the teams I played for. And you know, I wouldn't like to be remembered as someone who was a bit of a slacker and never really sort of gave it the 100% that I thought I gave. And you know, as just a down-to-earth person who treated others well on and off the field. And yes, I have had my moments where autograph signing was a bit much. You know, there comes times where you just feel, wow, I just don't need this, you know, and I think that everyone who is a professional sportsman would probably go through that. But who gave his time to the public, and I think they appreciate it more. We treated other people just as as we get treated on the field.
And I see that you're an avid golfer. Does Uli have a bit of competition?
He has once or twice invited me to play with him, but I think my game will go for a ball if I have to play with him, because he's embarrassing. I mean, he can't swing as easy as that. So I often try, but I'm my own worst enemy. I'm looking forward to the day when we finally meet and play a round of golf.
Oh, we should pause it on too. Thanks
Certainly
very
will.
much, Allan.
All right.
And I think it's amazing. Yeah, no, we all the whole of Debbie, Louisa, and it's funny, I actually haven't been back since I left here. So.
No, I want to be outdoors.
What's it like behind the scenes in the South African cricket team's change room?
Well, we've got a few pranksters. You know, Mark Boucher, I think, is the guy that is a tough little, gritty little man from border. Likes to play a few tricks on people. Generally, I think we've got a very good squad who gel well together. You know, you get your characters, and I think sometimes also you get your guys who, I think, who was it? I think once Hansi took when Kepler was still in charge, actually, we had these funny guys who deliberately took a whole dustbin full of water and leant it against the door like this, you know, knocked on the door and then ran away, and you end up cleaning a whole room. So I mean, that's all sort of the spirit of the guys and what they get up to. I'm sure there's a lot of teams, you know, who get up to naughty things, but it's good fun though. It's very good fun.
No, speaking of jokers, we've actually heard that you're one of the pranksters of the lot too.
No, where did you hear that?
My sources.
Yeah, I mean, we have a bit of fun. I like to break the tension sometimes with a you know, a few things. We try to imitate commentators and stuff like that, and I think that you know, but I mean, it breaks the tension sometimes. You know, when we're sitting there and things are tense, you say a word and all of a sudden someone's cracked a joke, and you feel a bit more easy about it. So, but as a prankster, no, I disagree with that totally.